Hello, loves. Welcome in. Welcome to Murder Mystery Monday. If you're new and don't know, we're doing something called, Murder Mystery Monday, but we're going through a book called Murder in the Family by Cara Hunter. It's been a wild ride. Last week we were left on such a massive cliffhanger, and I gotta say, the case is coming together. You all have been helping me put clues together, been fellow sleuthers. I don't even know if that's a word, but it's been wonderful and so much fun. So we are about to start a new episode. This story, if you're not aware, is written like a TV documentary. So we're getting intro scripts, we're getting evidence documentation, we're getting interviews with witnesses. It's a whole lot of fun. A very different reading experience, but I'm really enjoying it. Hello, Emma. Welcome in. Thanks so much for being here. Based on your emojis, you are quite cozy. Let me guess. Are you having hot honey tea? That's just a guess. But I did want to mention something before we dive in. If you're not a regular viewer of my channel, you may not know this, but I just uploaded a vlog. I do a lot of vlogs on my channel on Sunday, announcing something very exciting. And that thing is that I am now a signed author. I've been writing something I've coined my chai project for a couple years now. It was fully written a couple years ago, and I've been shopping it around, querying it to different literary agents, just trying to get some traction on it. And God orchestrated the coolest meet cute with my now publisher, and it's just been the most wonderful whirlwind ever since. So for any of you who have kept up with my chai project, which is a Gilmore Girls meets Hallmark autumn themed small town slow burn romance with a plus size main character, you will get to read that at some point. It will be published sometime in the future, and I'm still giddy about it. But I just wanted to let you know, in case you weren't aware, that big news happened and was announced. If you want to see the vlog, I have documentation from beginning to end. I just kind of filmed things in case something were to work out. I truly wasn't sure if it would, but God is good, and it was better than I could have imagined. Anyway, that was just the only announcement I wanted to mention before diving in. Also, tell me, comment down below what you are drinking right now, if anything. Do you have a cozy snack, a cozy drink? For me, I usually do tea or coffee, but when I'm live streaming, I need something a little more sippable, so another day, another Olipop. I just got groceries today and got quite a few flavors. This one is lemon lime, which is basically a Sprite. I also got their orange one, their peaches and cream one, and then they have a strawberry. All sorts of flavors, so yummy. I'm gonna open it right now so you get to hear the crisp. I don't know if that translated, but that sounded really crisp to me. Cheers. All right, you've all been very patient. Let me open the book. If you don't have your own copy, it's totally fine. I have been reading aloud throughout this whole series with accents and everything, whether you like that or not. It's the only way I can keep the characters straight, and I figure it would help you as the listener too. So if you have your book, feel free to read along. If you don't, no worries. I do try to show you any documentation that's important. We haven't had many documents to show recently, but we're going to start off with, what episode is this? Episode 5. Like I said, this is written in a TV show style, so it's written in episodes instead of chapters. Ooh, and before we start reading, let me show you my clue board. This was so that I could keep my head on straight. The deeper we got into it, the more convoluted and hard it was to remember what had happened in the previous episodes. So I have made a clue board for all of us to write down our suspicions, clues, people of interest. If you wouldn't mind, anybody who's live, if you could comment and let me know that this scrolling feature is working and you can see me scrolling. In a previous live stream, it wasn't working for you. I've checked all the things. It should work, but we're just going to roll with it as if it's working until I hear from y'all. Okay, so sorry, I'm just really proud of this little banner. Let me give you a rundown of the story. I do this at the beginning of every single Murder Mystery Monday live stream so that anybody who's new isn't lost. This book is a shocking thriller about a cold case, a fictional true crime series, and the family caught in the middle. 6 episodes. 6 episodes! We're on episode 5! Wait, episode 5 and 6 must be really long because we're only 64% of the way through the book. So the rest of the book are just 2 episodes. Okay, moving on. 6 episodes, 1 killer. It was a case that gripped the nation. In December 2003, Luke Ryder, the stepfather of acclaimed filmmaker Guy Howard, then aged 10, was found dead in the garden of their suburban family home. Luke Ryder's murder has never been solved. Everyone present around the time of the murder swears they saw nothing. Despite a high-profile police investigation and endless media attention, no suspect was ever charged. But some murder cases are simply too big to forget. Now comes the sensational new Netflix series Infamous, dedicated to investigating and perhaps cracking this famous cold case. The production team will re-examine testimony, re-interview witnesses, and once again scour the evidence. The family will speak. The key players will be reunited on camera. The truth will come out. Are you ready to see it? Dun dun dun. So our victim is Luke Ryder. How do I explain Luke Ryder? We've learned a lot about him. First of all, he is a serial identity thief. Luke Ryder is not his real name. At first we thought Eric Fulton was his real name because that was what we had traced him back to. Turns out he stole this person's identity as well. So we're still not sure who Luke actually is. He's stolen, I think, 2 or 3 people that we know of already. A few facts about him that we do know is that he was really in his 30s, not 20s as he claimed, although we thought he was in his 30s when we thought he was Eric Fulton, so that may not even be true anymore. This guy is slippery. We do know this for a fact, had a head injury, which is right here documented in this evidence piece of paper. I think, this is just me speculating, I think he got walloped on the back of the head, which knocked him out or dazed him, and then whoever his attacker was finished the job, rolled him over, finished the job, because he has a lot more damage to the front of his face than the back. There were no signs of a break-in. The perp knew the entrance code to the gate that led into the property. There were no security cameras. There was a 40-minute gap between when he was last seen and first found. And as I already mentioned, he switched identities a lot. He was presenting as Australian, but he actually wasn't. A few things we do need to recap are some of our key players. We mentioned in the book description Guy Howard. He is our director of Infamous, which is the show that we're reading. He was 10 at the time of the murder. We'll run through the day's events here in a second. But a few things you need to know. Amanda Granger and Andrew Howard had a son named Rupert Howard. Andrew, after Amanda died in a car crash, married his son's nanny, Caroline Farrow, and they had 3 children, Mara, Amelie, and Guy. Then Andrew died of a heart attack, which I think both of those not murders. We don't know they're murders. Alleged murders are very suspicious. We all know a heart attack can be faked. We all know a car crash can be orchestrated. I don't know. I just feel like all this happened a little too fast, a little too conveniently. Then Caroline married Luke Ryder. Luke was introduced to Caroline by Rupert. Rupert and Luke were friends from uni days, I think. Although I don't think Luke ever went to college, if I remember right. They met somehow, some way doing shenanigans. And that's how all of our key players come together. Scrolling function is working. Yay! Thank you! Appreciate the feedback. I'm always worried about whether or not things are working, so I appreciate the communication. All right, let's talk about our suspects. These are really not set in stone. This is just something that I keep for record keeping. You know, there's too many people to keep all in your head, so if someone feels suspicious, we're writing it down. And that's a note to you guys too, watching. If there's anyone that we're reading that you feel needs a second glance or needs to be put on the board, comment and let me know. Because I'm absorbing this story at a delayed rate because I'm reading it and not just listening and enjoying it. So our first suspect is Caroline Howard. I'm pretty sure she is clean. She has no apparent motives. Likely didn't commit the crime for money or inheritance. Luke was going to inherit something. Luke, I use air quotes, was going to inherit something from his grandmother. But Caroline wouldn't have got any of that money if Luke died. So it wouldn't have benefited her to kill him. Caroline was at a party during the murder, and she was seen at the party around the time of the murder. So she's pretty much accounted for. What we learned last week, which was the cliffhanger, she has a cesarean scar. It was filmed somehow. I don't know how. It was on a home movie that someone dug up. She had a child before marrying Andrew. So before her nanny job, she was with someone, had a baby. We don't know who that baby was. We don't know what the circumstances were. But she has a cesarean scar. And Guy, the youngest, the director, had no idea. He stormed out, totally bewildered and affronted by the news. Next, we have Rupert Howard. I don't know why I keep holding on to him as a suspect, but he has no apparent motive, and he insists he wasn't in London at the time of the crime. But he was friends with Luke, and I can't imagine that it would sit well with him that Luke and Caroline got together. That's his stepmom. I don't know. It just feels a bit icky from like a friend perspective. But he seemed to be genuinely surprised when he found out that Luke's identity was not true. We'll get to the mystery caller in a second. We also have Mara. She's the oldest child of Caroline, apart from the mystery baby we just learned about. Mara waited 22 minutes after finding the body to call Caroline, the mom, about the murder. In an interview last episode, she got really emotional during an interview. And that seemed uncharacteristic. She's a very hard-shelled person. She just has a lot of guards up. Therapy was brought up as well, and she would not talk about that. None of the siblings, including Guy, I think, would talk about that. So, interesting. Ian Wilson, I feel like we wrote him down, but I don't think he's really a suspect anymore. If you'd like to read this, you're more than welcome to, but we're going to skip him for now. Our investigative team, you're going to see a lot of these people, if you haven't already. This is Alan Canning. He's a retired senior police officer. He does not get along well with our private investigator, William R. Serafini Jr. Mitchell Clark is a freelance journalist who was seen at the scene of the crime. He also has a personal connection with the family, which he did not volunteer that information. We had to find that out the hard way. Hugo Fraser is an attorney, and you know the magazine, Sexiest Man Alive, whatever that one was? There's an attorney version in this book, and Hugo Fraser has appeared on that cover of that magazine 3 times in a row. So if that tells you anything about him. Layla Furness is our lady. She's our only lady on the investigative team. She's a forensic and clinical psychologist. I forget why this was important. Maybe one of you can remind me, but there was a side character that was part of the investigation that his last name was Khan, and I cannot remember for the life of me why he was important. There was a whole little mini scandal about him. We found out that her last name, her maiden name, is Khan. But something to consider is that Khan is I think it's a Muslim name, and it's very common. It's like Smith for us. So something to think about, but probably not a red flag. J.J. Norton is a forensic investigator. And then we've already mentioned Bill Serafini. He's a private investigator from New York. Now, timeline of the murder. I feel like this is the most interesting bit. 8:35 a.m. Caroline leaves to drive Guy to school. Remember, Guy was 10 at the time. The girls go on foot. It's a very walkable neighborhood that they live in, and especially in England, which is where this takes place, that's very common to walk places. I was like, why are the girls walking? That feels wrong, but actually it's a very common cultural thing. 9 a.m., cleaner arrives, Beatrice Alves. 9:15 a.m., Caroline returns to the house. 9:46 a.m., phone call from dry cleaner. 11:15 a.m., Caroline leaves for lunch. 2 p.m., Alves, the cleaner, leaves. 2:37, mysterious phone call. I said that really weird. Mysterious phone caller. Lasted 2 minutes and 33 seconds. Too long to be a wrong number. We have not been able to trace this call. It was in 2003, and it was a payphone. So we never got to identify this person, but it was a substantial call. And I think it was the reason that Luke decided not to go to a party that he and Caroline had planned on going that evening. But we'll get there in a second. 2:45, Caroline returns from her lunch. 3:30, Caroline leaves to collect dry cleaning and pick up Guy. 4:15, Mara and Amelie return from school. 4:45, girls leave for party. 7 p.m., girls leave party. 7:15, girls have pizza. 8:15, Caroline took girls to the movies in Notting Hill. Not sure what time this happened, but Caroline eventually returns home. And that's when Luke tells her he's not going to go to the drinks party they had already planned on going to. It was a last-minute change, and it's very suspicious considering he got a mysterious phone call. 9 p.m., Caroline leaves for drink party alone. 9:30, Guy is sent to bed by Luke. This is especially interesting because Caroline had promised that Guy could stay up until 10 to watch a special TV show. This was a Friday night, so he didn't have school the next day. It was a special occasion, but Luke, even though he knew this, sent Guy to bed anyway. Most likely because he was going to meet this mysterious phone caller. Caroline, at the same time, is seen speaking with the host of the party, Phyllis, at the drinks party, so she is accounted for at this time. At 9:35, between 9:35 and 10:20, the murder occurs. At 10:30 p.m., Mara and Amelie return home from the movies. They were driven there, but they walked back. I'll take away the question mark because we now know that's pretty normal. 10:52, Mara calls Caroline at the drinks party about the murder. And at 11:30 p.m., police arrive at the party to retrieve Caroline. One of you noticed that there was a 22-minute discrepancy between when Mara and Amelie returned home and called the police. Not called police, called Caroline. Which I thought was quite interesting. It's a big house, it's a big property, so some of that time can be accounted for, but 22 minutes? I don't know about that. So, put that under your bonnet. We're going to keep reading. Episode 5. Who killed Luke Ryder? There's a newspaper article from the Times. I don't know if... Sorry, my chair is so squeaky. It's really not going to show up for you, but you can kind of see it there. The title is, What Price Truth? Infamous may be a new kind of reality TV, but the cost is only too real. By Ross Leslie. Infamous, Who Killed Luke Ryder? Showrunner. It's taken us from Ambleside to Alabama and now to ASOS as the infamous team of experts continue to pursue the elusive Luke Ryder. A man whose ability to morph seamlessly through a whole sequence of different identities must surely put him on a high list to become the next Doctor Who. Okay, please tell me you in the audience know that reference, or am I the only nerd here? I love Doctor Who. I especially like Matt Smith's Doctor Who, and then the one before that, what's his name? It totally left me. It's on the tip of my tongue. The Doctor Who was with Donna Noble, if any of you know who that is. The minute one of you says his name, I'm going to immediately remember it, but those are my two favorite doctors. I've talked before about the psychological resonance of this case and how compelling its exploration of complex family relationships has been. Last night's episode added a new layer of complexity and genuine poignancy as Nick Vincent, the producer of Infamous, revealed live on screen that Caroline Howard Ryder had had a baby when she was still a teenager. This clearly came as a complete shock to her son Guy, the show's director, which certainly made for can't tear your eyes away TV, even if it left me, for one, wondering if we had finally crossed the notoriously blurry line between viewing and voyeurism. It's not the first time I've been prompted to reflect on the ethical issues raised by this genre. A few weeks ago, I referred to Infamous as the ultimate true crime reality TV. But seeing even a brief glimpse of Guy Howard's hurt and bewildered face last night was a powerful reminder of the human cost of this type of television. In T.S. Eliot's memorable phrase, surely no one caught up in these crimes should be asked to bear quite as much reality as that. This is on October 16th, 2023. So this is taking place 20 years after the murder. We have a chat room. Oh, man. The camera really blows it out. I don't know how to fix that. Nope, sorry. I'm trying. Let me zoom in here. There we go. That way I don't have to squint like an old lady. Oh, and here's not where you get my accents. Lucky you. Bloody hell, that Nick Vincent knows how to light a blue touch paper and withdraw. Kaboom! Sneaky jerk. And did you see Guy? Talk about ambushed, poor sod. Would love to be a fly on the wall at their next meeting. I have to say, I think they went too far last night. It wasn't just the Guy thing they're talking about in the papers, it was the violation of Caroline's privacy. She may have Alzheimer's, but she's not dead. She deserves the same consideration as anyone else. With you on that one, Ange, it was a definite bum note. But in terms of the investigation, it was a pretty big deal. Don't get me wrong, I found it uncomfortable too, but it is, after all, what the show's supposed to be doing, finding out as much new info as possible that might be relevant. That's bound to be problematic at times. Sorry, but you still need to treat people with dignity. That scene with Wild Bill and that woman, Christine, was just bloody hilarious. And Sherlock Serafini did it yet again. That whole Rolls-Shulman thing. I mean, who gets that lucky that often? Just remind me never to play poker with that guy. Anyone else playing Red MGB Bingo? Big cheer here every time it gets a mensch. Oh, pause. That's another thing. We learned... Let me back up. So, Amelie, the second daughter... I forget what age she was, but she came home unexpectedly from school one day. I think she was not feeling well. She came home and heard noises upstairs, and I'll leave it at that. You can use your imagination, but her mother was busy. And they've never revealed who the other person was involved. Amelie didn't investigate, but it told us that there was some sort of an affair that happened during Caroline's marriage with Luke Ryder. We just found out, we learned about a car that Amelie had seen in the driveway. It was a specific kind. It was a red MGB. Yes, red MGB. Not a rare car, but also not super common either, so they had a few cars to research, but it was still too many to narrow down. Well, I think it was last episode, they learned that I don't remember who the owner of the car was, but it was a woman. And apparently this woman often let her brother borrow her car. They didn't go any more into that, but we might just find out who her mysterious friend was that was visiting at all hours. It's doing my head in. I see the bloody things everywhere now. The cars. What was the thing about Hugo F. and Mitch? Like there was some sort of other agenda going on we don't know about. I wondered about that too. Do you think it's possible they actually know each other? I mean, vastly different jobs, etc., but, like, everyone keeps saying Ladbroke Grove is only a stone's throw from Camden Hill, and Hugo defo knows his way around that part of town. That tennis/squash club thing, for starters. I agree. Definitely want to keep an eye on. Episode 6. Filming. Black frame, text appears, with voiceover, narrator, female. October 3rd, 2003. The husband of a British socialite is found beaten to death in an upscale district of the British capital. 20 years on, and the killer has still not been brought to justice. But thanks to the work of the infamous team, new light has now been shown on this baffling case. In 2003, the London police did not even know who the victim really was. He was not Australian or 26, as he claimed, and Luke Ryder was not his real name. Was that the reason he had to die? Fade out. Cut to studio. The atmosphere appears to have changed, more uneasy, more uncertain. The team are around the table, along with Tarek. Tarek is one of the director's assistants, I think. Researchers, maybe. Nick, one of the directors under Guy, is standing at the window. Sunlight is streaming in, and they're all in summer clothes. Pause. Something to remember, because I just remembered it. The last thing we read in last week's episode was Nick talking to Tarek in an email, basically planning to drop a bomb on our investigators. Bill, who's kind of the older, grumpier team member, he was not pleased that Nick kept the cesarean scar reveal for last and ambushed Guy with it. That's his mom. And Nick didn't have the decency to let him know ahead of time. It just felt very disrespectful, and Bill was not about that. Nick, we learned, doesn't care. He's doing it for the show, and he has involved Tarek in something we're going to find out. So I'm keeping an eye on those two. Mitchell Clark. Well, Nick, you did it again. Led us all to water and then tipped us straight in. Nick Vincent, producer, smiling. Well, everyone loves a cliffhanger, don't they? Alan Canning, sarcastically. And here's all of us thinking bolts from the blue were exclusively Bill's department. Bill grins, but doesn't rise to it. Alan and Bill have a little tiff. Just a constant little vein throughout the narrative. I find it very funny. Layla Furness, to Tarek. What more can you tell us about Caroline's baby? Do we know when it was born? Tarek Osman. Well, no, what did I do his accent? I think it was Irish or Scottish. Well, none of her friends that we've spoken to seems to have known anything about it. No one brought it up, that's for sure. And in terms of a date of birth, there's really only one period before she married Andrew Howard, where Caroline goes off the radar for any length of time. Alan Canning, nodding slowly. That summer after she left school, when she was at the uncle's in Birmingham. There's really only one period before she married Andrew Howard. Oh, that she went off the radar, yeah. See, I'm reading at I'm absorbing at a delayed rate. Tarek Osman. Edgbaston, right? Mitchell Clark. So that's why she was sent away. It wasn't to get over an unsuitable bloke, it was to get rid of his even more unsuitable baby. Bill Serafini. It certainly looks that way. Layla Furness. But she was only 16 at the end of that summer, which means she must have been underage when the child was conceived. Bill Serafini. All the more reason for the family to want to cover it up. Alan Canning. Have you been able to find any record of the birth? Tarek Osman. I'm afraid not. It's a reasonable bet that it was at a Birmingham hospital, but we don't have any way of narrowing down the date. And if she had the baby adopted, we won't be able to access the original birth certificate anyway. Only the kid themselves could do that. The original would have been replaced by a new one after the adoption was finalised. Mitchell Clark. We don't know she had it adopted. J.J. Norton. Well, she certainly didn't keep it, did she? Tarek Osman, pushing his glasses up his nose. No, obviously not. I'm struggling with his accent. I can't do... I may have to change it. Let me see. No, obviously not. But as I'm sure you know... I'm just cracking myself up. Adoption records are sealed, so it's basically impossible to find out where the child ended up. Though it would probably have been placed with a local Midlands family, given that it would have been a Birmingham local authority dealing with it. Mitchell Clark. As far as we know, she never told anyone? Nick Vincent, producer. Well, Andrew Howard must have known. He'd have seen the scar, just like we did. But he's the only one, as far as we can tell. Lay the Furnace. I haven't seen Guy today. Is he okay? Nick Vincent shrugs. As far as I know. Lay the Furnace, evidently not impressed by this answer. I'm not surprised he's distraught. Everything he thought he knew has been thrown into doubt. J.J. Norton. I know what that's like. The older you are, the more traumatic that is. Hugo Fraser. I'm sure we're all extremely sympathetic, but what I'm less sure about is whether this gives us a viable new line of inquiry in the murder investigation. Mitchell Clark. True. I mean, however resentful the abandoned child might have been, he or she would have no beef with anyone but Caroline, and certainly not with a husband she didn't meet till more than 20 years later. Bill Serafini. But we know someone came to the house that night. It has to be possible it was Caroline's long-lost kid. Mitchell Clark, doing the math. If the kid was born in 1979, it'd be 44 now. Layla Furnace. More to the point, he or she would have been 18 in 1997 and entitled to see their records at that stage, but there's no suggestion they made contact with Caroline then. Why leave it till 2003? J.J. Norton. Not all adopted kids want to. Some never do. At 18 is just the earliest you can do it. Lots of people leave it a lot later than that, just saying. Mitchell Clark. But if they did track Caroline down, it might have been a pretty difficult encounter. What if the kid had quite a disadvantaged upbringing? It has to be possible if it was inner city Birmingham, right? Then, all those years later, they suddenly find out their real mother and her other kids have been sitting pretty on a pile like Dorney Place, while they were unceremoniously dumped and left out in the cold. J.J. Norton. Quite. Pause. Do we know how old Mitchell Clark is? He's the one who was seen at the scene of the crime. They cleared him, and we've already known that he has a connection to the family. I don't know how old he is. I feel like it probably said at the beginning of the book, but I don't want to scroll all the way back to find that out. Interesting. I don't know why it triggered, something. A little birdie in my brain. Could Mitchell Clark be the kid? And that's why he was there on the night of the murder? Just a thought. Probably not true. Mitchell Clark. I'm just saying, the kid may well not have seen it that way. What if they turned up on that night looking for Caroline? No Google Earth back then. They'd have just had an address. They probably had absolutely no idea quite what a house it was. They get angry, demand to be let in. Luke tries to calm them down, but things take a nasty turn, and if the kid was a boy... Hugo Fraser. Actually, that's not such a ludicrous scenario, Mitch. Lay the Furnace. And of course the police never track him down because they don't even know he exists. Hugo Fraser to Tarek. We know that for certain, do we? Tarek Osman. Well, there's nothing anywhere in the case files to suggest they knew. Lay the Furnace. But if the adoption records are sealed, there's nothing we can do, apart from yet more speculation. I learned this from my grandpa. he was adopted, and I think there's a 100-year wait period if adoption files are sealed. They're sealed for 100 years, and then you can open them. It usually disallows the adoptee to open them, but then their kids could open them, which is what my grandpa's kids ended up doing. I don't know if it's the same in Britain, but it's an interesting thing. So they may not be able to access it. And I don't know how police are able to access it, if they have carte blanche to unseal them for investigative purposes. I wish I had a police friend that I could text to ask. Nick Vincent, producer. There's nothing we can do, no, but we've passed everything we've found to the Met. It's up to them now. Mitchell Clark. But where does that leave us? What have we got left? Telling them off on his fingers. Rupert's out. Caroline's out. We can't pursue the adopted child. Ian Wilson has an alibi. We've basically run out of road. JJ is about to say something, but Alan cuts across him. Oh, I'm not so sure about that. Layla Furness, with a smile. Don't tell me we've finally found the owner of the infamous red MGB. Alan Canning. Funny you should mention that. As it happens, the woman I was following up with has suddenly got cold feet. Completely refuses to speak to me. J.J. Norton. You think someone got to her? Told her to keep shut. Shut 'em? S-H-T-U-M? I've never seen that word before. Hugo Fraser. Oh, for God's sake. It's not the bloody Sopranos. Layla Furness. Could just be a coincidence. Mitchell Clark with a knowing nod to her. But Alan doesn't believe in coincidences, does he? Alan Canning, steadily. No, I don't. Layla Furness to Nick. Do you know about this? Nick Vincent, producer, not answering her. What is it you have, Alan? Alan Canning, sitting back. It struck me, for the first time, when Bill was interviewing the people in Alabama who knew the real Eric Fulton as a child. Cut to clip previously shown of Bill interviewing Nancy Kalowski, edited. Let's see. Oh, this is just Nancy Kalowski talking about Eric Fulton's experience at school and how he was bullied. Bill Serafini, do you still have any of the cards he sent you? Nancy, no, they're long gone. I do have those photos we talked about, though. Cut to studio. People are looking confused. Layla Furness. I'm not sure what you're getting at, Alan. Alan Canning. It's only when you've seen it a few times that it jumps out at you. Mitchell Clark. I'll have to take your word for it, because, trust me, nothing's jumping out at me at all. Alan Canning. It was still just a hunch at that point, so I gave Tarek a call and asked if I could speak to one of the film crew. Layla Furness, frowning. The film crew for the Alabama shoot? But what on earth could they possibly... Alan. And he put me through to one of the women on the camera team. She's asked me not to give her name, but she confirmed exactly what I'd suspected. This was very far from being the first time Bill and Nancy Kozlowski had met. Oh, sorry, I'm reading Alan and I meant to... Oh, no, I'm right. Sorry, I'm getting my characters mixed up. Bill, the New York guy. Okay, so Bill and Nancy were the ones interviewing. Bill was interviewing Nancy. I was reading him as Alan. I apologize. So Bill knew Nancy before. Interesting. Silence. Bill shifts a little in his chair, but says nothing. J.J. Norton. I'm not sure where you're going with this, but the first question that comes to mind is how could she be so sure? Alan Canning. For starters, their body language. Also the fact that they arrived at the shoot together. Hugo Fraser. I'd hardly call that conclusive. Alan. And on top of that, what Nancy says in that last clip. Like I said before, those photos we talked about. The fact that she calls him Bill. Hugo Fraser. At the risk of repeating myself, I don't think that proves anything. Alan, glancing at him. No? Okay, then try this for size. He opens his laptop and connects it to the main screen. A scan of a document appears, headed Detective Bureau Investigation Card. Mitchell Clark. What am I looking at? Alan Canning. This is an NYPD 1 card. It is, in effect, a request to patrol officers to apprehend a named individual. Either because they believed to be a witness to a crime, because there are grounds for arrest, or because in some other way they are a person of interest. This, gesturing, is the I-card for Eric Dwight Fulton. Okay, so it's not going to be able to show you. It'll just... Oh, there. It's showing you a little bit. It shows you the document itself. But Eric Fulton is one of the personalities, one of the identities that Luke Ryder stole. J.J. Norton, scanning it. Okay, so this was obviously issued after he made off with Rose Schulman's stack of cash. Alan Canning. In fact, after her death, it was only then that the official complaint was made. J.J. Norton. Either way, I'm not sure where it gets us, given we already knew about that. Alan Canning. You're right, we did. Taps his keyboard. But we didn't know about this. And it says, Assigned Investigator, William R. Serafini. Oh, someone's brewing some tea because it's about to spill. J.J. Norton turns to Bill, clearly shocked. It was your case? Why didn't you say anything? Bill Serafini, shifting slightly. I don't think I ever explicitly denied it. Layla Furness. Oh, come on, Bill. I'm sure you never said anything about the... What does it say there? Assigned investigator? Bill Serafini. Look, if I omitted to mention Alan Canning, quietly, it was rather more than an omission. He taps his keyboard again. The screen changes to footage from the previous episode. Layla Furness. So you'd think this con man was active in New York in the mid-90s? Weren't you an NYPD yourself then? Bill Serafini. I was. Layla Furness. But you don't remember anything like this at the time? Bill Serafini. It's a lot of years ago, Layla, and it's a big city, but let's see what the guys back home come up with. Cut to, wide shot of whole team. No one is making eye contact. Hugo Fraser. With the benefit of hindsight, that last response was a classic lawyer's answer. Not strictly speaking a lie, but not the whole truth either. Not by a very long way. Layla Furness, staring at Bill. So you've known about Eric Fulton all along? Bill Serafini. It's not as simple as that. Mitchell Clark. Why didn't you say? Okay, maybe at the beginning of all this you didn't know he and Luke Ryder were one and the same person, but as soon as that was obvious... Alan Canning. I think you'll find that only became obvious in the first place because Bill was already 3 steps ahead of the rest of us. Layla Furness. To Nick, who's still standing by the window. Did you know? J.J. Norton. To Bill. You've been on Fulton's trail right from the start, haven't you? I'm right, aren't I? You knew about Rose Schulman. You knew Eric Fulton had stolen at least one identity already. And you knew the real Eric Fulton was in all probability dead. Bill Serafini. Whoa, hold on a minute there. J.J. Norton, gesturing at the screen. That thing's dated September 1997. You've been on this case 25 years. Alan Canning. I spoke to that colleague of yours, the one you trained up. He said you were obsessed with Fulton. You just wouldn't let it go, even when your captain told you to drop it. He said you worked evenings, weekends. Bill Serafini, dismissively. He's exaggerating. Alan Canning. He also told me you've been working for the Schulmans ever since you retired. You went to Alabama. You even went to bloody Beirut. camera pans around the table. They are literally open-mouthed. J.J. Norton, looking at Bill, and then at Alan. Seriously? Alan Canning. Seriously. That's how he knew it was Luke Ryder who really died in that bombing. And that's how he knew Eric Fulton was in the wind. Turning to Bill. You going to tell me I'm wrong? Bill Serafini. No, but like I said, it's not that simple. J.J. Norton, slowly, as if putting it all together. So that's really what's been going on here. You've been using our investigation to solve yours. Uh-oh. You knew we'd work out eventually that Ryder wasn't who he said he was. And if we were too thick to manage that on our own, you were right there, ready to give us a nudge in the right direction. Alan Canning, pointing at him. That's absolutely it, JJ. Spot on. Canning taps his keyboard again. More previous footage appears on the screen, this time an edited version of Bill putting a photo of Eric Fulton on the pinboard. Bill Serafini. Yes, it is. This is the man who left Sydney in November 1995 and was injured in a bus bombing in Beirut in August 1997. Only he wasn't injured that day. He was killed. The man we've been chasing, the man who met Rupert Howard in Greece, the man who married Caroline Howard and ended up being beaten to death in her garden, that wasn't Luke Ryder. That was an imposter. Cut to team. Hugo Fraser, dryly. Looks like he wasn't the only one. You're not exactly who you said you were either, Bill. Bill Serafini. Oh, come on. Mitchell Clark. Now we know where all those cliffhangers of yours came from. Not hard to drop a bombshell if you've a whole arsenal of them primed and ready to go. Layla Furness turns back to Nick, her eyes narrowing. You didn't answer my question. Did you know? You didn't pick him for this series precisely because he was already halfway there? Because it strikes me as a pretty big coincidence that you alighted on this one ex-cop from the whole of the NYPD who was already on the case. Nick Vincent, producer, holding up his hands. Layla, Hugo Fraser, sarcastically. And of course it would make such great TV, wouldn't it, Nick? You could choreograph the whole thing. All those so-called discoveries, the big reveals. Mitchell Clark, nodding. The perfect story arc. Nick Vincent. Bill, come on, help me out here. There's a silence. They're all now looking at Bill. Hugo Fraser. Well, we're waiting. Bill Serafini takes a deep breath. Look, I heard about the series through the grapevine, that some British TV company was looking at making a series about the Luke Ryder case. And yes, of course I was interested. I'm not going to apologize for that. J.J. Norton. So you're admitting you knew that Eric Fulton and Luke Ryder were one and the same, even back then? Bill Serafini. Yes, I did. The team react with varying degrees of anger and indignation. Bill holds up his hands. And yes, for that I apologize. But I'm not apologizing for wanting to be involved. I knew it might be my best chance at getting some closure for the Shulmans once and for all. Layla Furness. But you said you've known about Eric for years. Isn't that enough closure? Why are the Shulmans still paying you after all this time? What can they possibly hope to find? Bill Serafini. Simple. The money. If we can nail this man's real identity, then there's a chance we can find the missing cash, too. Are the Shulmans the family members of the grandma who left Luke Ryder money? Is that what that was? I'm having a hard time remembering. I think that's right. There could be a bank account. There could be bank accounts out there in his real name, not to mention Rose Shulman's Cartier diamonds. Hugo Fraser. And no doubt you're on a percentage of value recovered. Nice work if you can get it. Bill Serafini, ignoring him. That's why the family are paying me. And that's why I got in touch with Nick when I heard about the show. Hugo Fraser. And did you tell him what you just told us? Bill Serafini. Some of it. I told him I'd established, to my own satisfaction at least, that Eric Fulton had stolen the identity of Luke Ryder in Beirut. When I first got the case on the job back in '97, Fulton was long gone and no one knew where. And for a long time, that's how it stayed. But after I retired, the Shulmans asked me to take another look at the case. And that's when I made the link to Lebanon. And when I saw that old CNN footage of the blast, there was one face that suddenly looked very familiar. The reel of Beirut news footage is played again. The carnage on the street, the injured in hospital. Freeze frame on a man in a bed with a bandage across one eye. It's Eric Fulton. Mitchell Clark. He's been right under our noses the whole bloody time. Bill Serafini. Right. So the next thing I did was go to Beirut myself to try to find out which name he'd given when they took him to the hospital. J.J. Norton. Don't tell me. Luke Ryder. Bill Serafini. Right. So I started looking for a man with that name, and I found him. First in ASOS, and after that, finally, in London. The rest you know. Alan Canning. That's not the whole story, though, is it? Not by a long way. You didn't just fail to tell us any of this, you didn't tell the Met team either. You kept everything you knew about Luke to yourself, even though the fact that he was an imposter would have been significant new evidence in the murder investigation. Bill Serafini, interrupting. I was on the verge of doing that when I heard about the series, and I figured a few weeks' delay wouldn't make that much difference. Not after 20 years. J.J. Norton. You wanted a chance to work it out yourself before you handed it over to them. You wanted to be the hero who solved the case. Bill Serafini, shaking his head. It wasn't like that, honestly. Hugo Fraser. You are, or were, a law enforcement officer, for God's sake. You had a duty to to inform the Met. Bill Serafini shrugs. Fair enough. My bad. But they sure know now, don't they? Layla Furness. Is there anything else you haven't told us? Any other unexploded bombs? Bill Serafini. Absolutely not. Layla Furness. Are you sure? Bill Serafini. Scout's honor. He smiles. No one else does. Alan Canning, quietly. Where were you on the night of October 3rd, 2003? Bill Serafini stares at him. Seriously? Alan Canning. Seriously. Bill is clearly about to say something he might regret, but restrains himself just in time. For anybody who doesn't know, October 3rd, 2003, I believe, is the day of the murder. To just let you know. Alan's basically accusing him of the murder. Is that what we're doing? Alan? Okay. All right. Maybe this is more than just a little tiff. Feels like full-blown enemies. Hugo Fraser. To be fair, it's not an unreasonable question. Alan Canning. It's the obvious question. Turning to Bill. You, of all people, could have tracked Ryder down. You demand the money, the jewelry. He refuses. It gets ugly. Bill Serafini, shaking his head. Didn't happen. Back in 2003, I didn't even know that Eric Fulton and Luke Ryder were one and the same. That came much later, after I left the job. Alan Canning. So you say. Bill Serafini. And if that's not enough for you, I was in the U.S. the whole of that October. Alan Canning. How convenient. I'm assuming you can prove that? Bill Serafini, staring him out. If I have to. Alan Canning. That's very interesting, because something's been bugging me ever since I saw you listed on Nick's kickoff email. Serafini. It's a pretty distinctive name, isn't it? I knew I'd heard it somewhere before, and then I remembered. It was on a delegate list for a joint Met/NYPD conference I went to years back. Holds up a sheet of A4. Urban Policing in the 21st Century. The Eden Park Hotel, Windsor, 1st through the 4th of October. He pauses. 2003. Bill Serafini. I never made it. Alan Canning. Oh, really? Bill Serafini, visibly struggling to keep his temper. Really. There was a last-minute crisis at work. I had to pull out. Feel free to check if you want. Alan Canning. I think I'll do that. They're staring at each other, opening... Oh, I see. This is a description, not someone talking. They're staring at each other, openly hostile. There's an awkward silence, then Layla clears her throat and looks around the table. So, in the meantime, where does that leave the rest of us, apart from majorly mad at Bill? J.J. Norton, looking up. Actually, I might have something to add. He gets up, goes over to the pinboard, and points to one of the photos. Remember this? The picture of Luke? Luke had in his wallet that we all thought was taken in Australia. Camera zooms in on the photo of a woman and a small blonde boy standing stiffly outside a one-story house with a concrete water tower in the background. I've been wondering about this for a while. Obviously, in theory, the picture could be exactly what we assumed it was to the start, i.e. an image of the real Luke Ryder, which he had in his backpack when that bus bomb went off. Hugo Fraser. Which Eric, quote, found and kept because he knew it might help corroborate his identity. With Florence Ryder, for example. J.J. Norton. Precisely. And I can see why he'd keep it on that basis. It could be useful. But keeping it is one thing. Keeping it in his wallet is quite another. Remember, it was the only photo he had in there. To my mind, that argues something much more personal. Layla Furness. I agree. That's about identity in a much more intimate sense. Mitchell Clark. Sorry, I'm not with you. Are you saying this is actually a picture of Eric Fulton? So not taken in Calgary like we thought, but in Alabama? Hugo Fraser shaking his head. No, JJ's logic would still apply. We know this man wasn't really Eric Fulton any more than he was really Luke Ryder. An image of the real Eric would have no personal significance to him, so he'd have no reason to carry it around. J.J. Norton, nodding. Exactly. I don't think this photo is of any of this man's aliases. I think it's actually him. The one thing from his real past that he allowed himself to keep, for whatever reason. In which case, Hugo Fraser, if we can work out where this was taken, we might just be able to work out who he was. J.J. Norton, pointing towards him. In one. Bill Serafini, under his breath, frowning. Why didn't I think of that? Alan Canning. I agree with the logic, though, actually, doing that will be much easier said than done. Gesturing at the picture. I mean, look at it. It could be anywhere. Hugo Fraser, to JJ. You're thinking that the water tower could be identifiable? J.J. Norton, smiling. Not could be. Is. He goes back to his seat and taps on his keyboard. A close-up of the water tower appears on the screen. The image has been digitally enhanced, and as a result, it's now possible to see a fragment of lettering on the left-hand side, the end of a word. Mitchell Clark, sitting forward. What is that? G-H? J.J. Norton. U-G-H. Layla Furness. So the name of the town ends in ugh? Like something borough? J.J. Norton. That was our working assumption, yes. Alan Canning. Good luck narrowing that down. Must be hundreds of places with names like that. J.J. Norton, evenly. If you're thinking of the UK, then yes, obviously. But there are very few water towers over here, so a UK location is pretty unlikely. Towers like that are far more common in the US. You only need to watch a few old movies to know that. On the other hand, the vast majority of American towns with that sort of name actually end B-O-R-O, not B-O-R-O-U-G-H. Bill Serafini. I can attest to that. No one acknowledges him. They're all feeling real betrayed, I think. J.J. Norton. Though there is one other country where that suffix is fairly common for obvious historical reasons. Canada. Layla Furness. Canada? J.J. Norton. Absolutely. And if you cross-reference towns with the name ending in UGH with those with the water towers, then do an image search of those towers, this is what you find. He taps his keyboard, and a montage of Google images appears. It only takes the team a few seconds to recognize a photo on the second row. Layla Furness, pointing. Where is that? J.J. Norton. That, Layla, is Flamborough, New Brunswick. Layla Furness. I confess my Canadian geography is a wee bit sketchy. J.J. Norton, smiling. Don't worry, so was mine. He taps his keyboard, and a map of Canada appears with Flamborough marked. I hope this shows... Oops, I just tapped it. There we go. Is it going to show even a little bit? This is so hard to do. I feel like I'm doing acrobatics. Oh, you can sort of see it. It's in the bottom corner on the right. Sorry. I would love it not to do that, but we're limited on our tech here. This is followed by a montage of images of Flamborough in the 70s and 80s. Why did I say it weird? 70s and 80s. It's clearly the same place as the original photo. Mitchell Clark. That looks to me like a classic one-horse town. Hugo Fraser, under his breath. One moose town, more like. J.J. Norton, smiling. Not far off, certainly. Even now the population is barely more than 1,000. Layla Furness. So we should be able to track down our man pretty easily. Well, in theory, yes. But don't get too excited. We don't know his age, so we can't narrow it down that way. And there isn't much online from the local high school. Layla Furness. But you must be able to work out which house it was. Google Maps, maybe? J.J. Norton. We did try that, but it didn't get us anywhere. There's no street view in that location, but clearly there's nothing to stop us going over and having a look for ourselves. Which is why Tarek and I are booked on a flight out to New Brunswick this time tomorrow. Layla Furness. At last, some progress. Mitchell Clark. Certainly looks that way. Well done, J.J. Chapeau. Oh wait, J.J. Chapeau. My word. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm usually better at reading than this. J.J. Norton, grinning. Put it down to my not too deeply buried inner geek. And a bout of Vindaloo-induced insomnia last weekend that left me Googling water towers most of Saturday night. Bill Serafini. I've lost count of the number of times cases of mine turned on something just like that. Some tiny detail that seemed insignificant but ended up breaking the whole thing wide open. But yes, I agree with Mitch. Darn good work, JJ. The others exchange glances. No one responds to Bill. Fade out. Okay, I think that's the perfect time to take a break. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Everybody get up, stretch, grab yourself something cozy, a yummy snack, whatever you got to do. And we will be back in 5 minutes to continue this episode and see what happens next. I remember to turn on my mic this time. Whew. Hello, welcome back. Hope we've all had a chance to refresh yourselves, get up and move around. If you're anything like me, all of your joints cracked. Maybe that was just me. Give me a second. I'm going to link this live onto Instagram stories. If I could spell, we're live. Let's solve a cold case. There we go, that'll do. Now back to where I left you hanging. Oh, wait, first, I always forget this. I wanted to talk to you for a second, before we jump into the story, about my YouTube memberships. So this is something that I've recently incorporated. It's basically like Patreon, but YouTube's version of it. And I wanted to do this because I wanted something that was more cultivated to you guys. For most of my YouTube videos, I have to curate it to the masses. I have to format it in such a way where it will perform well for new viewers, not just current ones. And I wanted a place where you wouldn't have to always be served that kind of content. You could just have more casual conversation with me, more raw day in the lives and adventures, something a little less polished, a little more intimate. So I created these. I've got 2 memberships at the moment. The first one is called Golden Hour Gang. It's $1.99 a month. You'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, priority replies, and access to exclusive polls where you can help shape upcoming videos. Basically, you become part of the creative process. I also have something called the Daydreamer Society. It's $4.99 a month, along with everything in Golden Hour. You also get behind-the-scenes photos, status updates, a monthly members only live chat where we can hang out in real time. So this one thing is something I'm going to be implementing soon. I have a couple of members in this tier, and I wanted to wait until I had a few people before going live, because otherwise it would just be me and potentially empty air. The more members we get in this tier, the more I will go live. But for now, what I'm doing instead of that, to replace that until we get a few more members, is monthly videos that are just yours. It is not available to the public. It is for members only. I have longer chats with you. I share secrets and things that I wouldn't necessarily share publicly. It's a much more intimate experience, much more personal kind of vlog style. It's definitely a cozy girl talk and life updates with a mug of something warm kind of vibe. Now, one of the things you will get if you become a member in either tier is custom emotes. This I'm very excited about. I actually just sent a poll out to my Daydreamer Society members on some new emojis that I'm going to be adding to the December season, or the winter season. So right now we have an iced coffee, a stack of books, teapot, and pumpkins. Obviously we're moving into winter now and not so much fall, so I'm going to replace 2 of these emojis with something more seasonally festive. And I'm letting my members choose what those emojis are. As well as custom emotes, you also get custom loyalty badges next to your YouTube handle. So you'll see this whenever you comment something, it'll be right next to your name. A new member will get a coffee bean. A 1-month member will get a bag of coffee beans. A 2-month member will get iced coffee, my personal favorite. A 6th-month member will get a steaming mug of something warm. A 1-year member will get latte art in a mug. 2 years, we move from coffee-themed to book-themed. You'll get a bookmark. 3 years, you'll get an open book with magic swirling out of it. And at 4 years, you'll get a stack of books with twinkle lights around it. I haven't thought beyond 4 years because that feels unfathomable to me that someone would be a member for that long, but those are the things I have available. Oops. If you would so choose to become a member. Those are the perks. I would love to have you, but again, no pressure. It's just something I wanted to offer in case any of you were interested. Now, let's get back to the mystery. Right now, everybody is really mad at Bill. I don't blame them. He did sort of do them dirty, but I also am not as mad as they are. I'm sort of like, well, let's just power for the course, right? It's good television. Now, would I personally do that in real life? Absolutely not. But me sitting outside of the book, yeah, well, that tracks. Cut to Dorney Place. Time has clearly passed. The team are back in the drawing room, which has been set up with the whiteboard, photos, and a screen. The room is dark. It's raining heavily outside. Bill Serafini with slightly false cheeriness. Great to see the British summer living up to expectations. Mitchell Clark. You get used to it, eventually. Hugo Fraser, impatiently. So what news, JJ? Did you, like the Mounties, get your man? JJ Norton, grinning. Saw what you did there, Hugo, and yes, I'm pleased to say that Tarek and I have not returned from the frozen north empty-handed. Cut to footage. JJ and Tarek are standing in the main street of Flamborough. I hope I'm saying that right. New Brunswick. There's a soft furnishings store on one side of the street, a subway, and a real estate agency visible on the other. Cars are parked and people are on the sidewalks and sitting outside a cafe in the sunshine. Everywhere looks a lot more prosperous than it did in the historical photos shown previously. In the foreground, Tarek is looking at his phone, and JJ has a map folded open on the bonnet of a car. JJ Norton. The water tower is northeast of here, so I reckon the house must be, looking up and pointing, in that direction. Tarek Osman, staring at his phone. Yep, that looks about right. Cut to JJ and Tarek outside what is clearly the house shown in the original photograph. The camera angle has been exactly replicated to allow the present-day image to morph slowly into the photo and then back again into the present. The building has been extended and the front yard concreted over to give more space for cars. A large SUV has been reversed onto the drive. The water tower is barely visible through much heavier tree growth. JJ turns to camera. You're loving the drama? I'm so glad! Me too! I'm eating it up with a spoon. This is really high intensity. I didn't think it would give us so many twists and turns, but I'm not complaining. Just checking my levels to make sure y'all can hear me and see me okay. I'm a little paranoid. JJ Norton. As you can see, we're pretty sure we have the right house, and thanks to Tarek, we've established who lives here now. But obviously we have no way of knowing whether they're related to the man we're looking for. On that basis, we need to be careful how we play this one, so I'm going to go over there on my own first, without the cameras, to get the lie of the land. The camera tracks him as he goes up to the house, rings the bell, and waits for an answer. The door is opened by a woman holding a baby on her hip. Both her face and the baby's have been blurred out. JJ introduces himself and shows her a copy of the photo. She points at it, nods, and they talk for a few moments. He then thanks her and comes back briskly towards Tarek and the film crew. JJ Norton, brandishing the picture. We're in luck. She knows who the woman in the photo is. None of the family live round here anymore, but there's a retired minister who knew them well, and he's still in town. Cut to interview. Indoors, in a clean but slightly shabby and old-fashioned house. A thin, elderly man in a plaid shirt and slacks is sitting in a wooden armchair. He has reading glasses on a leather cord round his neck. There's a pastel picture of a smiling Jesus surrounded by angels and little children on the wall behind. The man must be well into his 80s, but he still has considerable presence. He must have been a charismatic figure in his youth. Subcaptioned, Paul Cormier, Minister, St. Lawrence Church, Flamborough, RETD? Does that mean retired? JJ Norton. So, Reverend Cormier, we've been told you know the family who lived in the house on Greenall Road in the 1960s. I believe they were in your congregation, is that right? Reverend Cormier. Wait, where are they? Oh, Canada. Okay. I'm not doing a Canadian accent. We're just going to go American.
Certainly is the McKenna family. Lawrence and his wife
Marie, sorry.
Very nice people, very observant. In the religious sense, I mean.
J.J. Norton.
And they had children?
Reverend.
2, Rebecca and Jonah. Rebecca was their first, and it was a good number of years after that before Jonah came along. I reckon the McKennas had all but given up. Marie called him their miracle baby.
J.J. Norton.
He was a bit spoilt then, maybe?
Reverend.
I'm afraid there was very little money around for spoiling either of the children. Larry didn't bring in much of a wage, and it must have been tough for the kids, not having all the material things their friends and schoolmates did.
J.J. Norton.
Well, I know what that's like. But what about spoiling them in other ways? Were they an affectionate family?
Reverend.
I wouldn't say exactly that. Larry was a pretty strict father, if you want an honest opinion, but I guess Marie did corset Jonah a little. Tended to overreact if he had a sniffle or a grazed knee. I suppose she'd waited so long to have him she was terrified he'd be taken away.
J.J. Norton, sitting forward.
I think you said you have some pictures you could show us.
Cormier reaches to a side table and hauls an old-fashioned photo album onto his lap. He reaches for his glasses and opens the pages. They're so dry the paper crackles. Reverend.
My wife used to run junior church on church on Sunday mornings. Both Rebecca and Jonah would come. Though by the time Jonah was old enough, Rebecca had graduated to organizing a lot of activities. She always did love kids.
So he remembers when they're older. That's interesting. He gestures to JJ, who pulls his chair a bit closer. Camera angle over Cormier's shoulder zooms in to close-up, tracking across a series of images. Kids of 6 or 7 sitting demurely listening to a woman with gray hair reading from a book of Bible stories. A sports day, a nativity play with a dark-haired girl as Mary and a little blonde boy in a bushy ginger beard as Joseph. The camera comes to rest on a group photo with all children lined up in rows. The older woman is standing on one side of the group, and a tall, red-haired young woman... Wait. Did I read that right? An older woman is standing on one side of the group, and a tall, red-haired young woman in glasses is on the other. Someone has written all the names neatly along the bottom of the page. The red-haired young woman is Rebecca. Mary, from the Nativity, is Julianne. And Joseph is Jonah. He's wearing a t-shirt with a whale on the front and is standing next to Rebecca. She has one hand on his shoulder. Reverend, gesturing.
That's Rebecca's handwriting.
J.J. Norton.
I assumed the whale thing on the t-shirt was deliberate.
Reverend, smiling.
It was his favorite Bible story, for obvious reasons.
J.J. Norton.
Looks like Rebecca was quite protective of him.
Reverend.
Oh, yes, most definitely. There was this one time, Jonah was around 9, when one of his classmates stole something from another boy and claimed it was Jonah who'd done it. It was Rebecca, not Larry or Marie, who went round to the guilty boy's parents and insisted he confess his lie. It was in her nature. She couldn't rest until the situation had been set to rights and the boy responsible was punished.
J.J.
Where is she now?
Reverend.
Moved away, went into nursing. Last I heard she was working for one of those charities who help people in need overseas. MSF, I think.
Sighs and shakes his head.
She took Jonah's death very hard. They all did. Marie was never the same after that.
JJ, clearly taken aback.
Jonah died?
Reverend.
When he was just 17. He'd gotten a summer job over in Nova Scotia, just up from Halifax. One of his teachers put in a good word for him. She knew someone at one of those high-end marinas. You know, that sort of thing. All shiny gin palaces and New Yorkers up for the summer. Jonah knew nothing about boats, of course. There's no water to speak of around here. But he was charming and happy to pitch in, and he got hired on the spot.
J.J. Norton.
So what happened? Reverend, sighing. Maybe he was a bit too charming, if you catch my meaning.
Charming? Is this sounding like anybody else we know?
There was talk afterwards that he'd gotten tangled up with the wife of one of the yacht people, that she'd lent him money, or he'd wheedled it out of her, and the husband found out.
J.J. Norton.
Something tells me this isn't going to end well. Reverend, shaking his head. No, indeed. There was a bad altercation between this man and Jonah, and the man ended up in the hospital. When the police went looking for Jonah a few hours later, he was nowhere to be found. They thought initially that he'd just skipped town and would be back as soon as things died down, but then they discovered that he'd left his possessions behind. Wallet, passports, everything. About a week later, some clothes washed up along the coast. The police identified them as Jonah's, but that's all they ever found. Made it doubly hard for the family, with nobody to lay to rest. Marie arranged for a memorial in the churchyard. It's still there, just Jonah's name and the dates and a carving of a whale. She got a local stonemason to make it for her. Shaking his head. Very sad. Silence.
J.J. Norton.
Without wishing to sound so insensitive, was there any possibility that Jonah could have staged the drowning? Did the police look into that, do you know? I mean, if he was in trouble.
Reverend.
I think the police did look into it, but never came up with anything. There was never a trace of him anywhere else, though Rebecca clung to that for years. She always insisted she'd find him one day.
I'm not saying Rebecca might be a suspect, but interesting.
Shrugs. I'm not a fool, Mr. Norton. I know there are people who've walked away from their lives and started over, but it takes a lot of planning to get away with it. Jonah was only 17 at the time, and frankly, even if he'd been older, he'd never struck me as resourceful enough to pull something like that off. And I find it very hard to believe he would have walked out on his family and never looked back. He'd have known the pain it would cause, especially to his mother and sister.
J.J. Norton.
You said before that both his parents are dead. Is Rebecca still in touch with anyone round here, do you know?
Reverend, shaking his head.
Not that I'm aware. There aren't many of her generation left around here. Most of the young people move away the first chance they have.
J.J., reaching to shake his hand.
Thank you, Reverend. You've been very helpful.
Cut to studio. Team are sitting round the table. Whew, that about did my voice in. Whew. That was grating on my vocal cords doing the old man's voice. Whew, glad that's over. The things I do for you guys. Bill Serafini. Hats off to you, JJ. In less than a week, you achieved something I haven't managed in over 20 years. Hugo Fraser. I feel like he's kissing. Like, kissing up, you know? Like brown-nosing. Hugo Fraser. And we're certain this Jonah McKenna is the man we're looking for, are we? J.J. Norton.
Well, we'd need DNA from a family member to be sure, so as it stands, everything hinges on finding Rebecca. We could then do a comparison on what the Met have on file for Luke.
Mitchell Clark. Did you try MSF?
J.J. Norton. We did, but we haven't turned up anything so far.
Tarek's also getting in touch with the Red Cross and Medicines du Monde, and some of the religious organizations like Christian Aid, but thus far, no luck. Looking around the table. But we do still have the photo of the house Luke had in his wallet, and as far as I can see, the only way he could have even got hold of that, never mind kept it, was because he was, in fact, Jonah McKenna. Alan Canning, dismissively. That would never stand up in court. J.J. Norton, ignoring him. And we also have this. He nods to Tarek, who taps his keyboard. 2 images appear side by side on the main screen. On the left, a close-up of Jonah from the junior church photo of him with the other children. On the right, one of the wedding pictures taken of Luke at Dorney Place. The faces have been lined up to be exactly level. Tarek taps the keyboard again, and the left-hand image of the boy begins to change. J.J. Norton: as you can see, Tarek managed to get a hold of some rather cool age progression software. Jonah's face gradually evolves from a child to youth to young man. The final image is annotated as age 25. The resemblance to Luke is startling. And in case anyone's wondering, we didn't rig the process in any way. We simply put Jonah's photo through the program, and this is what came out. Mitchell Clark: that's incredible. Layla Furness: I agree. It looks like you really did get your man, JJ. Hugo Fraser: so what happens next? JJ Norton: well, I've reached out to the Canadian police and they're going to liaise with the NYPD to see if we can link the Jonah McKenna, who went missing in Nova Scotia in 1991, to the Eric Fulton who stole Rolf Schulman's money in 1995. Bill Serafini, frowning: you looped in NYPD and you didn't tell me? JJ Norton: Nick said not to. Sorry. Oh my word, the inner politics of this crew. Mitchell Clark, under his breath to Layla: sounds a bit like a sorry not sorry to me. Layla tries and fails to suppress a smile. Hugo Fraser, washpithly: pot or kettle, Bill? Bill opens his mouth to say something, then clearly thinks better of it. Probably a good idea. Hugo Fraser, looking round the table: so unless someone else has something, I think that's it. Bill Serafini, turning to him: oh, I don't think we're done quite yet. The others exchange slightly wary, and in some cases, weary, and in some cases wary, glances. Judging from his face, Bill evidently has something juicy up his sleeve. Okay, Bill, I'll bite. What have you got? Bill smiles and nods to Nick behind the camera. The screen changes to a still of Bill, once again, in his trademark shades and short-sleeved shirt, sitting at a table in the sun with a beer in front of him. Mitchell Clark, shaking his head: how come I never get any of the good gigs? Layla Furness, washpishly under her breath: I thought he was looking suspiciously tanned. Hugo Fraser: hold on, I recognize that bar. Isn't that the place Tarek went to? Bill Serafini, smiling: in ASOS, right. Layla Furness: you went to ASOS? But I thought... Bill Serafini: that we'd run into a dead end on that one? That even if Luke did con another older woman over there, we'd never be able to track her down? Yeah, that's what we all thought, Layla, but I took a page out of Alan's book and decided to go back myself and take a closer look. Alan flashes him a glance, but says nothing. The still on the screen changes to footage, showing Bill talking to a series of elderly Greek ladies. Most shake their heads and look blank. Sorry, my eyes dropped a line too low. But one nods and starts talking animatedly in Greek. Don't tell me. Oh, Layla, sorry. Don't tell me. Someone remembered that woman after all? Bill Serafini: it's not that straightforward. Hugo Fraser: you've lost me. Layla Furness: ditto. Bill Serafini: sorry guys, rewind. So, like I said, I started wondering whether we might have missed a trick on the whole ASOS thing, that maybe we needed to approach it from a different angle. Layla Furness: in the sense that... Bill Serafini: in the sense that if our theory was right and Luke, quote, really did swindle another woman over there, and swindled her so bad it might have given someone a motive to track him down and kill him, then where would that someone have started to look for him? Layla Furness: I think I see what you're getting at. You'd start in ASOS, of course, then Sydney maybe, given Luke was supposed to be Australian, certainly not London. Mitchell Clark, nodding: makes sense, and I agree. ASOS would have to be the first place you'd go. Hugo Fraser, frowning: but without knowing this woman's name, I don't see how that helps. Bill Serafini: bear with. So the first thing I did was contract George Nicolaitis to check if anyone came looking for Luke after he left the island. Layla Furness. I'm surprised Tarek hadn't asked him that already. Bill Serafini. He had, but neither George or his father remembered anything. But when I caught up with George this time, I tried a different tack. I asked if he could think of anyone else who was working at the bar around that time. And he put me onto this guy. A still appears on the screen. A man in his 40s, heavy stubble, salt and pepper hair, a very Mediterranean face. This is Vasilis Morelatos. He lives in Athens now, but worked in George's bar for several months the year after Luke left. He told me he was pretty sure a man came looking for him that summer, which was what the old lady also told me. Cut to interview. Bill and Vasilis Morelato talking on Zoom. Bill's at an outdoor restaurant table, clearly still on ASOS. Bill Serafini. So what do you remember about this guy, Vasilis? Vasilis. I don't know how to do a Greek accent, so I'm just going to do my best and probably butcher it. I'm afraid I wasn't there the day he came. He spoke to one of the other barmen, but I remember them mentioning about it to me. It was a British guy. He was looking for Luke Ryder and wanted to know if any of us had information about him. He told my colleague it was important that we could call him if we knew where Luke was. Bill Serafini. But he... Getting my accents mixed up. But he didn't say why he wanted to know? Vasilis, shrugging. I never knew, sorry. Bill Serafini. But if he wanted you to call him, he must have left a number, right? Vasilis. Yes, there was a piece of paper. Someone pinned it up on the board. I don't know what happened to it. Cut to studio. Bill looks round at the team. But I think we do, don't we? It ended up in that crate of stuff George boxed up for his paps, just like all the rest of the junk. Layla Furness, clearly impressed. You actually found it? Bill. Well, I can't be 100% sure because there was a lot of bits of paper with nothing but a name and a number, and no way of telling how long most of them had been in there. But I reckon these 4 are the most likely, mainly because they're all UK numbers. And the one thing old Mr. Nicolaitis remembered about that woman in the photo with Luke was that she was a Brit. Taps his laptop, and the screen shows an image of 4 crumpled bits of paper. One says Luke with a number, Mick with a number, Steve with a number, and Tony B with a number. Hugo Fraser. I'm assuming you tried all these numbers. Bill Serafini. Sure did. Layla. Luke looks like the most promising, assuming that's a reference to the person this man was looking for rather than his own name. Bill Serafini. That was my assumption too. The bad news is that the Luke number is out of service, as is the Tony one. Steve is just ringing out, and as for Mick, he turned out to be a guy who was trying to start a boat rental business in ASOS that summer. Seemed legit. Mitchell Clark. So are you going to try to run down who owned the other 3 numbers back in 1998? Bill Serafini. Safe to say I'm on it. Alan Canning, shaking his head. The phone companies will never give out that sort of information. And the Luke number is clearly a mobile. What if it was a burner phone? There wouldn't even be a record. Bill Serafini. In my experience, regular people don't use burner phones, Alan. Only people who don't want to leave a trail. Layla Furness. But if someone did want to track Luke Ryder down to exact revenge, wouldn't they do everything they could to remain anonymous? That sounds like a very good reason to use a burner phone. Bill Serafini. Agreed. Mitchell Clark. Okay, but on that basis, what can you do? It's just another dead end. Bill Serafini. Not quite dead, Mitch, because my professional instincts tell me that someone who's prepared to go all the way to ASOS to find Luke would almost certainly try other methods too. Layla. As in... Bill. As in personal ads, for example. Mitchell Clark. Dryly. That long ago? Good luck with that. Bill Serafini. Actually, it's not as impossible as it seems. We have those phone numbers, remember? Which means we can do a digital search for a match. And that's exactly what Tarek and the team have been doing. Taps his laptop again. And this is what they found. IEDS. Appeal. Do you know a man called Luke Ryder? Thought to be from the Sydney area and may now be residing in London. Blonde, medium build, approximately 6 feet. Last known sighting Delphi Bar, Assos, Greece. Late summer of 1998. Information in confidence to P.O. Box 7675. Reward offered. Layla Furness. Okay, so this proves someone was definitely trying to track Luke down. And well done, that's a pretty big step forward, but all the same, there's nothing here, gesturing at the screen, that will help us identify who was looking for him. Is there? Apart from a P.O. box number that's over 20 years old. Sorry, my chair's probably going to squeak. I need to adjust. Been sitting in one position for a while. Bill Serafini. Not so fast, Layla. If you've been in this trade as long as I have, you get to recognize a certain way of doing things. Or, in this case, a certain way of saying things. The use of certain terms, for example, or particular forms of words. Excuse me. There's a brief silence as they all read the ad again. Okay, let's read the ad again. Do you know a man called Luke Ryder? Thought to be from the Sydney area and may now be residing in London. Blonde, medium build, approximately 6 feet. Last known sighting, Delphi Bar, Assos, Greece. Late summer of 1998. Information in confidence to P.O. Box 7675. Reward offered. That feels like a police report. Like a description of a victim or a description of a witness. Or a description of a suspect. Hugo Fraser, taking a deep breath. Okay, so I suspect that you're going to say that this is exactly the sort of language police officers tend to use. Anyone who works with law enforcement on a regular basis would recognize that. So is that what you're getting at? You think this ad was posted by someone with a background in policing? Bill, not acting in their official capacity, of course, but someone with that training, yes. I think that's a distinct possibility. Alan Canning, shaking his head despairingly. Once again, you're building a massive number of, frankly, tenuous assumptions on absolutely no tactical evidence. Bill Serafini, hear me out, please. As I said before, it's little things like this that are easy to overlook that often break a case. Layla Furness. Okay, but... Bill cut her off. Remember how Alan went poking about in my Alabama interviews? I thought, maybe I should take a leaf out of his book. He nods to the cameraman. The screen changes to edited footage from episode 5. Tarek Osman. We also spoke to some of the older residents while we were in Assos, and one old lady thought the woman might have been called Irene, but someone else came up with Carrie, so your guess is as good as mine. Layla Furness. And what about Rupert? Did he remember this woman? Tarek. You'd have thought he might, wouldn't you? Or that the photo might have triggered something, but sadly not. Layla Furness. Though, like you said, it's a very long time ago. If she was in her 40s, then she'd be over 60 now. Alan Canning. And near nigh impossible to track down. It'd be yet another complete waste of bloody time. And that's assuming there was some sort of relationship between them, which I'm very far from convinced was actually the case. Not on the basis of one bloody photo. Bill Serafini. I'm not so sure. I mean, I don't know about you, Alan, but I don't behave like that with random women I meet in bars. Alan. Maybe you don't, but some men do. Especially selfish men, like this Luke bloke clearly was. Layla Furness. Wow, that escalated quickly. Freeze frame on Alan. His face is thunderous. Cut to studio. What is happening? Bill Serafini, turning to the team. I'm with Layla. That did escalate quickly. Too darn quickly, in fact, which makes me wonder what could possibly have gotten Alan so exercised. I mean, he had no dog in this fight, right? He turns to Alan, but he says nothing. Cat got your tongue, buddy? Oh, well, I think I can do the next part on my own. He taps his keyboard again. Montage of photos appear on the screen. A school photo of small boys sat in rows. A family snap of 2 parents, a girl, a boy, and a younger boy. A much later picture of a family gathering, clearly screen grabbed from Facebook. Alan Canning. Where did you get all that? Bill Serafini, smiling and shrugging. All on the web, my friend, if you know where and how to look. As my friend Tarek most certainly does. He turns to the team again. Some of them are looking distinctly uneasy. So to resume, our friend Alan here was born in Croydon in 1967. He had an older brother, Graham, born in 1962, and a sister, Eileen, born in 1958. I'll save you the trouble of doing the math. Eileen's 65 now, and she would have been 40 in 1998. What? What? Layla Furness, don't tell me you think Eileen was the woman Luke met in ASOS. Bill Serafini, Irene would be an easy mistake for Eileen, wouldn't it? And someone else thought she was called Carrie. He gives them a meaningful look. Mitchell Clark, okay, so you think Carrie could be an equally easy mistake for Canning? Bill Serafini, right. Alan Canning, pointing at Bill, how dare you? How dare you go poking about in my family business? Bill Serafini, you saying I'm wrong? That this woman wasn't your sister? Layla Furness, intervening. Hold on a minute before we all get carried away. Bill, when you and Tarek were poking about in the wilder reaches of the internet, did you happen to find a picture of Eileen in the late 90s? Maybe that would help establish if she's the woman in the photo with Luke in 1998. Bill Serafini. Great minds, Layla. And yes, we did. The screen changes to a photo. It's an office environment. Desks and computers, people wearing lanyards. Several are holding files. There's a red circle around Eileen Canning. The image is lined up next to the two photos previously shown of Luke and the mysterious woman in ASOS. J.J. Norton. Well, the hair is similar, but hundreds of women that age wear that hair like that. Layla Furness, frowning. There's a degree of a resemblance, but that's as far as I'd be prepared to go. Hugo Fraser. I disagree. You can't see nearly enough of the ASOS woman's face to make any sort of definitive identification. Mitchell Clark. But like Leda says, there is a resemblance, and I can see how the name thing might back that up. He catches Alan looking daggers at him and holds up his hands. Hey man, just saying. Layla Furness. Is this all you have, Bill? Because I don't see how you can make a connection back to Alan based solely on this. Is there anything else? Bill Serafini. There sure is. In November 1997, Eileen Canning divorced her husband, the owner of a successful construction company, by the way, and resumed using her maiden name. 6 months later, a woman of about the same age was pictured with Luke in ASOS. I can't prove that it was Eileen, or that she ever even vacationed there, but the logic would make sense. She's just gotten divorced, she's hit 40. Why wouldn't she want to enjoy her freedom? Find a last chance at love. Hugo Fraser, dryly. Based on his previous track record, I doubt love was what Luke had in mind. Bill Serafini, nodding. Right, and Eileen Canning was declared bankrupt in 1999. She must have gotten a decent settlement from the husband, but she managed to run through the whole lot in 2 years. That's some going under any normal circumstances. Layla Furness. But on the other hand, if she was being scammed by someone like Luke... Bill Serafini, nodding. And I think we'd all agree that anyone who loved her might well want to find the person responsible for that scam and make him pay. In every sense of the word. A brother, for instance. Especially a brother with access to all the resources of the Metropolitan Police. Layla Furness, to Alan. Did he write the ad? I have mixed feelings about Bill. Yeah. Now that you say that, yeah, I can see that. At first, I just thought it was a heated rivalry between Alan and Bill, wanting each of them to be the front runner. You know, one wants to end the episode with a cliffhanger and a really big plot twist, the other one trying to outdo the other. But a police brother with a vendetta? That's an interesting thought. Love all the plot twists. Wow, Alan. I know, right? Let's continue and see where this roller coaster is going to take us. I'm intrigued. I'm not complaining. Where was I? I lost my track. Oh, a brother, for instance, especially a brother with access to all the resources of the Metropolitan Police. Layla Furness to Alan. Is this true? Was it you who went looking for Luke in ASOS in 1999? Hugo Fraser, dryly. More to the point, did you track him down to Dorney Place 4 years later? Alan gets up, goes over to the window, and stares out. Bill Serafini. We're waiting. Alan Canning turns to face them. You're asking if I had a reason to hunt that man down. If I had a reason to loathe the very sight of him? The answer is yes, I did. Fade out. End credits. No, are you kidding? No, that cannot be the end. No. Okay, wait, we have emails that we can read. I'm getting so excited, I'm coughing. We have some emails. It's not over yet. Date, Monday, 17/07/2023 at 11:09. From Tarek Osman to Nick Vincent. Subject, empty. Just to confirm, I've sent the stills to the lab. They think it's a long shot, but I'll let you know as soon as I hear. T. Stills to the lab? What stills? Is anybody a crime enthusiast? What do stills mean? In my head, it means photo, like photo stills or like screenshot stills. But why would they need to go to the lab? Ooh, okay. That's it? No, that's the only email we get. Stop it. And then we go to the next episode. No. That's such a terrible ending. I guess we'll have to pick this up next week. Okay. Whether you're watching live or watching after the fact, I want to know your thoughts. What are we thinking as far as suspects, as far as who had the potential to do this? I do want to go to our little, it does this sometimes. You're going to see the ambiance video like that, if it'll let me. Is that going to work? Oh, I'm getting the rainbow of death. Hold on. There we go. Okay. Yay, now it scrolls. Well, now you know what ambiance video I was watching the other day to write to. Okay, so I want to add some things about good old Alan. For sure. With reference to Bill, I question his ethics in withholding information, but I can understand his perspective of the show starting a few weeks later. I agree. I get his perspective. I get everyone's perspective. That's the problem. There's an error saying YouTube is not recording. Can you still see and hear me? Someone comment and let me know. I should be live. I've never had that error before. Error, YouTube is not... The audio is cutting in and out. Okay, that's funny. I wonder why. Well, I better end it here then. I'll write some things about Alan after the fact and bring it up next episode, but can see... hang on. Okay, the error went away. I hope that's okay. I hope we're good. Okay, I'm just going to end it, but just know that I will go after the fact and put in some details about Alan that we've just learned. Because you're right. I think the director, Nick, is not helping matters. He's encouraging this sneaky, behind the scenes, keep information from each other, go around each other's backs. He's encouraging this type of environment. So it makes sense to me that both Alan and Bill are following suit. Still cutting me off. Okay. Well, yeah, audio. Okay. Well, I'm just going to end it then, because if you can't hear me, there's no point in continuing. But thank you so much for watching. I will share all of these thoughts in next week's video on Monday. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed. Sorry about the last minute weird audio issues and the error that popped up, but I'm enjoying this, and I can't wait to see what happens next episode. See you Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard. Thanks so much for being here. I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!